We're going, remember the final covers the entire semester, because we wouldn't let it replace test grades if it didn't, right? So I'm going all the way back to what we did at the beginning of the year, okay? So it looks like they're probably going to need the quadratic formula, huh? Yeah. Okay, so I have to get it equal to what number first? 0. So I'm going to move the 5 over. So 6x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0. Now I'm looking at something that's multiple choice. How did I know that I'm going to use the quadratic formula instead of factor?
Because the answers.
Yeah, look at your answers. They're all in radicals, right? If I didn't have radicals there, I had nice numbers, I would know that I could factor it. Okay, and I'd go for my magic x. All right, so x equals, what's my b value? 4 plus or minus square root of, what's 4 squared? Minus 4 times what? 6 times 5. Doesn't matter what order you do them, but we typically do the 6 first. All over 2 times 6. All right, so negative 4 plus or minus square root of 16. Let's see. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 6 is negative 120 over 12. Plus, and it looks like I could do this, right? Because it looks like it's splitting it up. What is 16 minus 120? Negative 104. Okay. This is going to reduce to definitely negative 1/3. Do I even need to worry about that? Look at every single answer choice. It's already negative 1/3, isn't it? Okay, so I know when I see a negative under there, what do I have to do? Pluck your eyes out, which means that this answer choice is out. Okay, because all the rest of them have an I in it. I need to split that into two different radicals. What's the biggest square number that goes into 104? Does 4 go in there? Yeah. Okay, how many times does 4 go in? 26. And look at your choices. You have 13, 26, 34. Okay. What's the square root of 4? 2 squared of 26 over 12i. 2 goes into 12 6 times. So negative 1/3 plus or minus square root of 26 over 6i. It's looking like the second answer choice. All right, are we good with number 1? Okay. Number 2. We need to write the quadratic function in vertex form. So I'm going to start by pretending that that's a y. Okay. We want to make sure it's written. So the next thing, it's really completing the square, right? So what do I need to do with this 7 to get it to the other side? Add it. So we're going to y plus 7, and this is where we put in some plus blanks. Oh, I forgot to do something first, didn't I? Does it have a lead coefficient? It's got a negative, so we're going to divide by that negative to begin with. Let's start there. So we're dividing everything by negative 1, then I'll move the 7. So negative y equals x squared minus 4x plus 7. What are we going to do to move this 7 to the other side? Now we're going to subtract it over, and we're putting in the plus blanks in. Okay, so this one here, I'm not going to worry. I'm going to worry about setting up the cheating factoring. Remember the cheating factoring? All right, what do I do with that negative 4? Divide by 2, and what do we get? Negative 2. What do I do to the negative 2? The hint's right here. Square it. What do we get? 4 to both sides. All right, so I've got negative y, negative 7 plus 4 is what? Negative 3. In order to get this in vertex form, I need to move this stuff back over. So how do we move the 3 back over? Add it. So x minus 2 squared plus 3. And then I need to divide, and I need to be careful how I divide. Let me go to some different color. So I'm dividing everything by negative 1, which with the parentheses, I'm just going to float the negative 1 in front of the parentheses. And then I'm changing my sign here. Okay, so that right there would be the final answer in vertex form. All right, everybody got it? Good with number 2? Okay, looking at number 3, how do we factor that? What kind of factoring is it? Difference of squares. So what's the square root of 16x squared? 4x, square root of 49?
7.
7, make one a
Negative.
1 a positive, 1 a negative. Done. Don't miss that question, you guys. Okay. All right, what do we need to do to factor number 4? Magic x, good. So we've got 2 numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to positive 4. What do we get? Oh, what happened? I did something really wrong, didn't I? What did I do wrong? Apparently I'm not awake yet. So it's add to negative 40, sorry, multiply to negative 40 and add to 3. I don't think that's the first time I've done a magic x wrong in a long, long time. All right, so what numbers do we get in there? 5 and what? 8. Okay, and which one has to be negative? 5. Okay, do we need a box?
Yes.
Why?
There's
the leading coefficients. You can't say you didn't learn anything all semester. We should all know that. Okay? So 4x squared and negative 10, negative 5x, and 8x. All right, what times what is 4? I've got choices, don't I? 2 and 2. Is 2 going to work to divide into the 5?
No.
Okay, so what's my other choice? 4 and 1. Where's my 4 going to have to go?
Top.
Top. Good. So how many times does 1x divide negative 5x? How many times does 4x divide 8x? 2. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So I've got 4x minus 5 times x plus 2. Another thing you can look for on these type of questions is if multiple choice, I tend to like which of the following is a factor of, okay, rather than giving you both where you can just FOIL it out, okay? All right, we good with 4? All right, we need to find the solutions, which means we need to set it equal to what? 0. Okay, I'm going to choose to move the 3 and the 40 over so I don't make my leading coefficient negative. So when I move the 3 over, how do I do that? And then what do I do to get the 40 over? Negative 40. Those numbers popped up again. All right, equals 0. So we need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to 3. A negative 5. Do we need a box this time? No, there's no leading coefficient. So we've got x plus 8 times x minus 5 equals 0. It's going to be a multiple choice test. Am I looking at every single little step of your work? That doesn't mean don't show it, right? But there are steps we can skip. We could have written it right down to this. You could have probably on this one, since we didn't have a leading coefficient, couldn't we just switch the signs on this? Isn't that ultimately what we end up doing? Negative 8 and 5. Okay, we good with 5? All right, it says to solve by completing the square. I'm not looking at your work. Do you have to solve it by completing the square? No, if it's a multiple choice question and I'm not looking at your work, you do not have to solve by completing the square. So this is because look at how nasty that's going to be. When I divide by 4, aren't I going to get weird fractions in there? Yeah. Okay, so let's get it equal to 0, and let's use the quadratic formula instead. Actually, we could try to see if it factors first, and then use the quadratic formula. Yes? Huh? You don't, we're going to move the 25 over. We don't have to necessarily if we're going to do the quadratic formula, okay? In fact, we could always do the quadratic formula even if it does factor, can't we? Yeah, so let's just go for the quadratic formula and see what happens, okay? It might be a mistake. It might take us a long way to get just nice numbers, but let's try it. So we've got x equals, what's your b value? Negative 15, so that's going to go positive, plus or minus square root of, what's negative 15 squared?
225.
225 minus 4 times what? Negative 4 times 25, okay. All over 2 times -4, which is really -8. Okay, let's see what happens here. So we've got 15 plus or minus square root of 4 times 25 is 100, isn't it? So it's going to be 400 back there, isn't it? And it's going to be a positive 400. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. All right, so what's 225 plus 400? 625. All right. Oh, you can't see any of my square numbers right now, can you? What's the square root of 625? Use your calculator. No. 25. It's one you should know, right? Because that one, it comes every so often. It comes up. Normally the walls aren't those. It won't be covered. If they are covered for your test, remind me, and I'll take the calc posters that are in front of them down. Okay. All right. So this one was factorable. Okay, but that's okay. Quadratic formula worked for us too. I've got 15 plus 25 over -8. And then I also have to calculate 15 minus 25 over -8. So what's 15 plus 25? 40 divided by -8 is? -5, okay. 15 minus 25 is? -10 over -8 is going to reduce to? 5 over 4. So those are your two answers. Okay, and again, when you see vertex form, you have to use completing the square. When you see solve, you can pick whichever method you like the best, because I'm not checking your work because it's multiple choice. Okay, if it was an open-ended question, you got to use what I tell you. Okay? If it's an open-ended question, you have to use what I tell you. Okay, but if it's a multiple choice like the final, you can pick whatever you want, because I'm not going to grade work. Okay? Don't copy your neighbor's paper though. Okay? It's the one thing you can't do. All right? Okay. Greatest common factor. 5x. There we go. Okay. What's left behind?
X squared plus x minus 24.
-4. Okay, what do I need to try for the back? Because I have to factor completely, which means I could keep going. Magic x. So two numbers that multiply to -4 and add to 3. 4, -1. So we've got 5x times x plus 4 times x minus 1. This is a great question to ask either which of the following is a factor or give you a list like the multiple response ones, and you've got to pick from the list which ones are right. Okay, so that's a really good multiple response. Which those ones could possibly pop up on the final. All right. So the ones that you couldn't just type in a nice answer, I gave you the multiple choice on because it would have been a nightmare to try to type this in. And then you get it right, mark it right. So when we're dividing, what are we supposed to do with this back piece? Do you remember? Flip it and switch to what operation? Multiplication. Okay, so I flipped the back and I'm switching to multiplication. This piece up here, I'm going to start factoring it so I'm not writing a million steps of work. Okay? So, how am I going to factor the top? Magic x. So two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 8. Okay, so x plus 6 times x plus 2. How do we factor the denominator? Okay, difference of squares, so I get x what? Good. All right, what happens now? Anything else cancel? X plus 6 also cancels. You get x minus 6 over... Remember, it's like a simplifying problem when we multiply. You can connect the fraction bar. Okay? So x minus 6, x minus 2 is the third choice. What? Thanks. So you missed the whole hat conversation at the beginning of the period. Got to get here on time. Okay. All right, so solve the equation, check for extraneous solutions. So this is the thing where we multiply everything by the LCD. In fact, I'm going to write this bigger so I have space to do that. Plus C, notice I'm leaving space, equals 1. What's my LCD this time? C plus 4 times, remember how we circled if it was the same, and then everything else was, or we circled in red and circled in blue, remember that? So this would be, both of them would give it written down, right? Because there's nothing that matches. So they're both the LCD. C plus 4, C plus 16 times C plus 4. Okay, what cancels in this first one? Good, and we're going to distribute this C. So you got C squared plus 4C. Okay, what cancels in this second term?
C plus 4.
Good, and what are we going to do with this C? Distribute. So you get C squared plus...
16C.
Good. All right, over here, we are going to FOIL that. So I see C squared. What's C times 4? 4C, and C times 16 is, and what do we end up with in the middle? 20C, and then 16 times 4 is what? 64. Good. All right, let's go ahead and, you know what I'm going to do is I'm not going to combine my like terms over here before I move them, because watch what happens. If I subtract that C squared, doesn't it take care of one of them? Yeah, so why put them together to just take them apart again? All right, I'm going to subtract the 20 over. What's 4C minus 20C?
Negative 16C.
4C minus 20C is negative 16C. Uh-oh. I had more to put together, didn't I? My trick didn't work, did it? All right, but let's think about that, though. What's 4C plus 16C?
20C.
It's 20C. Do I really need... And then when I subtract the 20C, doesn't it all go away?
Yes.
Oh, I changed the highlighter. That was weird. Okay, so that all ends up going away, so I'm going to subtract over the... Actually, do I even need to subtract over the 64? No, because if I'm going to do... It's a square number. I might as well just do plus or minus. So C equals plus or minus what?
8.
8. But remember, we could have extraneous on this. So extraneous is anything that would make the denominator 0. So if I put a positive 8 in there, is it okay? If I put a negative 8 in there, is it okay? Yeah, but you need to watch and make sure you don't have an extraneous on the final. Okay? We good with 9? Okay. 10. Perform the indicated operation. It looks like we have we do have different denominators, right? So both of them are going to get written down, aren't they, for our LCD? So x plus 3, x minus 3. And remember, this one is different than this one because this one had an equal sign and this one does not. Okay, this one is just an expression. And also, look at your denominators in the answers. Aren't they all the same? Yeah. Okay. So what's missing from this denominator that's in the common denominator? So that's the only thing we multiply by, and we're going to distribute. So when you distribute, what do you get?
4x minus 12.
Good. All right. What's missing in this second denominator?
X plus 3.
X plus 3. Distribute. What do we get?
6x plus 18.
18. Good. What's 4x plus 6x?
10x.
10x. Okay, so I know it's not that one and not that one. What's negative 12 and positive 18?
6.
It's positive 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then x plus 3, x minus 3. So it's looking like the last choice there. Okay. All right, we good with 10?
Yeah.
All right, we've only got 5 to go today. All right, multiply the expression, simplify the result. So what crosses out right away? Remember, it's like this. Don't the C's just cross out? Okay, and then on the A and the B, I need to subtract my exponents. The 3/2 is going to stay 3/2, isn't it? So let's see. A to the third minus A to the first would be A to the second. B to the fourth minus B is going to be
B to the third.
B to the third. So it's looking like the first one, isn't it? All right, we good with 11? All right, determine the maximum number of zeros of the polynomial function. There's no work on this one. Remember, you just look at the degree. What's the degree of this?
6.
Please don't get that wrong on the final. Okay? You don't even need to write anything down. All right? I will give you permission to not write anything down on number 12. Okay? All right. What? You can circle the 6, but it's online, right? So you can't circle the 6. You can imagine circling the 6. All right. Which of the following is or are not possible rational zeros? So remember, this is the P and Q thing. Okay? The best thing to do is make the list and then go back to the question. Okay? So where do the P's come from? The first number or the last number? The last number. So the P's are coming from the 45. So what times what is 45? 1 and 45 is a good place to start. What's next? 3 and 15. Okay, what else?
9 and 5.
5 and 9. Is that it? Okay, and then we know they're all plus minuses, but again, it's multiple choice. We can throw the plus minuses on at the end, right?
Yeah.
All right, where my Q is coming from the first, right? And what times what is 2?
1 and 2.
So good news, the list isn't too huge. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to divide them all by, or I'm going to go 1 divided by 1. So this is my P divided by my Q. I'm going to do 1 divided by 1 is 1. 1 divided by 2 is 1 over 2. So I've taken care of 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 3 over 2. I've taken care of that. 5 divided by 1 is 5. 5 divided by 2 is 5 over 2. Taken care of 5. 9 divided by 1 is 9. 9 divided by 2 is 9 over 2. We've taken care of that. 15 divided by 1. 15 divided by 2. Good. Taking care of that. And then 45 divided by 1. And 45 divided by 2. 45 over 2. And we know that they're all plus or minus. Okay, so now let's go back and read the question again. Again, do you really need to, on a final, write down all those plus or minus signs? Absolutely not. Okay? You just know they're plus or minus. All right, it says, which of the following is not a possible rational zero? So is 15 on the list?
Yes.
Yep, so that one's not a correct answer. What about 2 over 15?
No.
So that one is not a possible rational zero. All right, what about negative 9 halves?
Yes.
Okay, so that one's off the list. What about 2/3? So that's one of our choices. What about 1/2?
Yes.
Yep, so it's going to be just B and D is what you would type in there. So that's a multiple response. And remember, on the multiple response, you need to, you'll have to type your answers. You have to type the letter choices, okay? Don't put any spaces, so I don't have to go back and read, and no commas, all right? Let's keep going. I think that's all I need to say on that one. All right, 14. Which of the following are zeros of the polynomial? So the first thing I'm going to do is set it equal to
0.
0. What do I have to do next?
Take out the highest thing.
Okay, I got to take something out. What are we going to take out?
Highest common
X.
denominator.
We're going to take out the greatest common factor.
Yeah, that's
So X, what's left?
squared.
Q.
Squared plus
5.
5 equals 0. What property do we use?
0.
Good. Zero product property. So one of our choices is 0. But notice it's a multiple response again, right? So I might have more than one right answer. What are we going to do to move that 5?
Subtract.
Subtract it, and then how do I undo the squared?
Square root.
Square root, and we see, and what do we write in front of the square root?
Alright.
Good. And then when we see a negative, what do we got to do? Pluck your eyes out. So my other two choices would be D and E. So it's A, D, E would be our letters that would be correct. Ooh, what happened? I'm gonna hit key. I just went too fast. We got one. Do you want me to leave it on that one still? just hit it just too fast. Okay, let's look at 15. 15 is the last one we're going to do today. It says we need a remainder. Do I have to use long division to get the remainder? No. Could I use synthetic? Is Mrs. Ballard grading the work so I can tell which one you've used? No. Okay, so you get to pick what you want. If you're going to use synthetic, what's going to go in this box? -3. You have to do the opposite of that sign. All right, you got to be careful, though, because we have something missing. So what are the coefficients we're going to use?
6.
Good.
0.
2, 9. Excellent. Because there's no x squared, right? There's 0 x squareds. All right, what do you have to do with the 6?
Bring it down.
Bring it down. -3 times 6 is?
-18.
Good. Is 0 and -18? -3 times -18. Positive 54. 2 plus 54 is? 56. This is a good time to use your calculator. -3 times 56 is negative what?
168.
Good. And then 9 minus 168 is negative 159.
Yeah.
We all agree with that? What happened?
Never mind.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right, so the remainder is just that number. All right. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop today. By the end yesterday, I had all the homework updated, so everything is in that I have, other than I think there's a test I still need to grade out there. Okay. I haven't put the extra credit performance task in. I'll get that done. Okay. So you have the rest of the period. You want to get yourself prepared for tomorrow, so you need to start working 16 to 30. Okay, on the study guide. You could be working on getting some of those other performance tasks made up. Okay. In a cup, do I need to come around and stamp, or are we good today?
We're good today.
Okay, if you really want stamps, you're welcome to get up and come see me. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hit the stop button on this thing here.